Hello YouTube, welcome to Monday's edition of The Breakfast Club. I'm Got That Funk, thanks for joining me. Our viewer James Fussell asked me a question a few weeks ago on The Breakfast Club about what my thoughts were about the upcoming UK general election. And this is going to be your video, James. Before I get into that though, I'm also going to be doing another video later this week on The Breakfast Club. I'm going to take the Friday slot this week on The Breakfast Club. And answer a question from Brock Lawley and Marv Roberts about what my thoughts were about how to deal with Islamic terrorism, if you want to call it that. And I'll talk about that on Friday, okay, right here on this channel. Meantime, though, when I answer James Fussell about what my thoughts are on the UK general election for 2017, and James, there's so many different ways I could take this question, and if I was to give you a comprehensive answer in any of those different ways, this probably would take like 45 minutes, and I don't really want to go that long on a Breakfast Club video ever. So I'm going to keep this as brief as I possibly can and still try to make it interesting and give us something to chew on in the comments section. Now, just a little bit of background for me about me in case people watching don't know. I'm an American citizen who has lived in the UK since 1989, and in that time I've seen 92, 97, 02, 05 and 2010 and now 2017, so that's 5 plus Brexit, 6 major elections. And I have to say that I was very alien to the UK political system when I first got here, and even after 3 years when the 92 election rolled around, it was my first experience of a UK general election, and as such I was a little bit sort of like gobsmacked by how things apparently worked. The system is quite different to the American system. And one thing about it that really struck me, which has always stuck in my head ever since 1992, is that I was watching a news program on Channel 4, and they talked about a poll where 47% of the people who answered the poll said that they would vote for a Liberal Democrat if they thought the Liberal Democrats had a chance of forming a government. And the irony of that is that in the UK system, if 47% of the people voted for whatever party, that party would definitely form the government. So it just seemed really bizarre to me that people said, yes, I would support this if they had a chance, but then they didn't do the thing that would give them the chance. It just was alien to my thinking. And I think that sort of thinking prevailed in the UK for a long time after 1992, but I hopefully think it is a little bit less now. Partly, I think it's less now because of the Brexit vote last year. I think people actually sort of think, hey, maybe my vote can count as a result of Brexit last year. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of Brexit. I would have voted Remain if I had a vote, for sure. For a lot of reasons, but the biggest one is well enunciated by our sometimes co-host here on the Breakfast Club, NoelPlum99. Who said about Brexit, better the devil you know, basically was the sum of his argument. There's so many ifs and buts and we don't knows about Brexit that it just seems stupid to sort of say, well, I'm going to vote for everything I don't know rather than, try and fix what I do know. It just didn't seem like the right choice to him or to me. Anyway, I digress. As far as this Brexit vote enabled people to see for the first time that maybe their vote could count, I think that was a worthy exercise for democracy, regardless of the fact that I didn't get the result that I wanted. And another thing about Brexit which I want to bring up, which pertains to this election, is that a lot of people that I'm personally acquainted with, young millennial people in their late 20s, early 30s, registered to vote for the first time in their lives to vote to either remain or leave the European Union last year during the Brexit vote. I know people who voted both ways. Everyone I knew at work except for one voted to leave the EU, and everyone I know in my personal social circle voted to remain. And an awful lot of those people registered for the first time to vote. That's how much they cared about the issue, and they're still registered to vote now. Plus, I think there's an awful lot of millennial-aged people who have registered to vote this time around who had never previously registered to vote. And I think when there's a big youth vote, that does tend to swing left. So I think there's a potential for a little bit of an upset here. I think Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party might actually win this general election. But I'm getting ahead of myself. because there's a couple things I want to say about this election in particular. First of all, I've been here for, like I say, 5 general elections now prior to this one. And in my experience, it's rare in the UK that they make so much of a focus on the personalities involved of the leadership of the party, either side. I mean, both parties are doing it to each other, and the press is doing it just in general as well. More so than in my experience over the past 25 years. And I mean, that's just my personal opinion. Feel free to disagree with me if you've been exposed to the British system and you think, no, this is no different than normal. Fair enough. Tell me why you think that. But to me, both sides seem to really be making a big issue about the leader of the other side, more so than natural. And I think that's interesting because, the way the parliamentary system works here in the UK is you're supposed to be voting for your local constituency MP, But really, voting for your MP is a vote for the prime minister that you want. So in a sense, it's kind of presidential, but it's not. And I think it's a kind of a convoluted system. Because if you want a particular leader to be or not be, say for example you hated Jeremy Corbyn, but you really are left of center politically, you're kind of screwed this time. And the same is true in reverse the other way. If you're a sort of moderate conservative and you look at the Tories right now and they want to put 5 more years of austerity and completely screw people in this country for another half of a decade at least. I think no. What happened to my compassionate Britain that I grew up with? I could totally see people who are conservative but still thinking like that. So I don't know what to say about the politics at the moment are a bit twisted compared to what traditional British politics seem to have been over the 25, 27 years that I've lived in this country. I think one of two things is probably true, and neither of these things these two things can't both be true, but maybe, probably, in my opinion, one of these is true. Either after Theresa May's government locked in the Article 50, they triggered Article 50, which locks in the UK for Brexit. There's no getting out now. There's 2 years to negotiate with the EU the terms of Britain's exit. And so I think that they triggered Article 50 and then called a snap election because they figured that the constituency would shit its pants and go, well, shit, this is too soon. We can't have Jeremy Corbyn. And, there would be some sort of Tory landslide. And I think the Tory party, under Theresa May in particular, but the Tory party in general, would take any sort of, they were predicting at first that they might win a majority of 100 seats, possibly more. And any government in the UK, trust me, of any party that gets a majority of over 100 is going to act as if they have a mandate, because they do. And they are going to carry out their program mercilessly, especially in the first 2 years of their governance. This happened after John Major won in 1992, and it happened after Tony Blair won in 1997. They went straight in and changed loads of things. And in 97, I think they did a lot of great changes for the better. The first 2 years of that Labour government were incredible for this country. They made a lot of really great changes. And it was the first time in my political experience that my life personally got better as a result of an election. So, did I already say that? I don't know. Anyway, I digress. So either they call this election because they think they're going to get some kind of massive majority and they're going to be able to carry out their program without apology. And their program is not very good, in my opinion. Either that's true, or they are trying to think in a sort of long-term political strategy, and they're thinking, well, fuck, the public voted for Brexit and we're sort of stuck with it because we were the government at the time. And they don't want to necessarily not be in the government, but on the other hand, they think that there's no good way for Britain to get out of the EU. There's no way that Britain is going to get out of the EU in better shape than it was when it was in the EU, and they fucking know it. So, basically, Brexit and the negotiations of Brexit is a poisoned chalice. And I think they calculated that they've done an awful lot in this election campaign to screw themselves up. Let's face it. I mean, this Tory campaign has been a disaster by normal British standards, in my opinion, as an observer. Anyway, and that being so, I think they might actually want Corbyn to win with the smallest possible working majority, because then he'll have to deal with the whole nightmare of Brexit, and when he inevitably fucks it up, because whoever does it is going to fuck it up from the other side's point of view. Like I said, there's no good way to get out of the EU. It's not going to be good for this country. and they're not going to be able to sell it as good no matter how it's done. So I think that the conservatives might have calculated that they might rather spend 2 or 3 years out of government rather than the 20 that will ensue if they fuck up the Brexit negotiations and this country comes out in a worse shape than people expect it to as a result of Brexit. So those are my thoughts about the 2017 UK general election. I hope I've given us something to talk about in the comment section down below, and I look forward to hearing everything that you've all got to say. I don't know if she's coming back tomorrow on The Breakfast Club. Sister Danger should be here. I really should check the calendar, hon. I'm sorry if I keep saying you're going to be here when I'm supposed to know you're not. My bad. Anyway, y'all take it easy. I'll see you again next week. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.